Our first speaker may have the most recognizable voice on campus. Michael Gannon is Distinguished Service Professor Emeritus of History here at the University of Florida. He is the author of many books, not the least of which is The New History of Florida, Florida, A Short History, Michael Gannon's History of Florida in 40 Minutes, which features a CD of that famous voice, Rebel Bishop, and The Cross in the Sand. Michael Gannon.
Woody Allen said that half of life is showing up. I think the other half is getting up. Thank you, Emeritus, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a happy coincidence of history that within 3 years' time, Floridians have the opportunity to celebrate two major historical moments. The first occurring just recently on April 2nd of this year was the 500th anniversary or quincentenary of the discovery of Florida by Juan Ponce de Leon, who sailed here from Añasco Bay, Puerto Rico, in 2 caravels and a smaller vessel, a Bergantina. The second major event to take place on September 8, 2015, will be the 450th birthday of St. Augustine, oldest permanent European community in what are now the United States and Canada. There are 4 things that most people think they know about Juan Ponce de Leon. The first is that he was the first European explorer to discover Florida. The second is that he was hunting a fountain of youth. The third is that he gave Florida its name. And the fourth is that we have no idea where he landed on our peninsula. To the first point, I would suggest that we say that Juan Ponce's voyage constituted the first known or documented discovery of Florida. That is because Florida's shorelines may have been sighted, even visited beforehand, by the crews of Spanish slaving ships. In the decade prior to Juan Ponce's voyage, ships out of Hispaniola, that is today's Dominican Republic and Haiti, sailed in ever-widening circles throughout the Caribbean and Bahamian waters in search of native islanders whom they might enslave to work the Spanish farms and mines in Hispaniola. What about the natives of Hispaniola themselves? Well, they were dying out in high numbers, owing first to communicable diseases brought in by the Spaniards, to which the natives had no acquired immunities. And secondly, many of the workers were succumbing to harsh Spanish work practices. So the hunt was on for islanders from elsewhere who might be brought to the island. And perhaps one or more of those expeditions happened upon this peninsula, which may account for the hostility of the Florida natives showed toward Juan Ponce's crews when they came, and account as well for his finding on the lower Gulf Coast of, quote, an Indian who understood the Spanish language. In connection with my mention of an Indian, that erroneous geographic term that had its origin with Columbus, we should not neglect mention of the people who were already here when Juan Ponce arrived. Originally Eurasians who had crossed the Siberia-Alaska ice bridge some 12,000 years ago, their descendants had spread southward through what came to be called the Americas. Here in Florida, at the time of Juan Ponce's dropping anchor, the indigenous population numbered about 350,000 persons. Not only were they and their ancestors the first discoverers of Florida, they were also this state's first land developers, home builders, farmers, and artisans. The second commonly known thing about Juan Ponce is that he stumbled upon Florida while searching for a mythical fountain of youth. We can allow that he possibly had a vague interest in that fantasy, which was widespread in the Mediterranean world and brought to this side of the globe by Spaniards. It is unlikely that Juan Ponce sensed a personal need for those waters that, quote, made old men young again, end quote, though as an entrepreneur he might have considered bottling the water, if he ever found it, and selling it on late-night TV. Where the fountain is concerned, the most telling evidence against it lies in the patent or charter that Juan Ponce received from Spanish King Fernando II, authorizing his expedition. The patent was meticulously detailed in its specifications of what Juan Ponce was to search for, namely a mysterious island named Bimini. Nowhere in its pages was there any mention of a fountain of youth, nor is there any mention of such waters in all of Juan Ponce's correspondence. The third thing that most people know about Juan Ponce is that he gave Florida its name. And here, common knowledge is correct. Landing on the Atlantic coast on April 2nd, our discoverer was impressed by the verdant beauty of the landscape he beheld. He decided to christen this land, which he thought was an island, La Florida, the flowery land. He stated later that he chose that name first because the island, with what he called many refreshing trees, was beautiful to behold, and secondly, because it was Easter week. And in Spain, Easter was popularly known as Pascua Florida, flowery Easter. As for the fourth thing we think we know when Juan Ponce's name is mentioned, namely that we do not know where the explorer landed when he reached Florida, it may be conceded that we do not know the landing site exactly. But we're always in hunt of it, and we are not without resources. In 1974, our country's leading maritime historian, Samuel Eliot Morison, having studied Juan Ponce's voyage out of Puerto Rico, expressed his opinion that Juan Ponce could not have landed as far north as St. Augustine, because at his speed during the number of days at sea, he could not have proceeded that far. We would never have confidence in the route and landing site, he said, until a skilled mariner in a ship of the same draft and sail spread resailed the route at the same time of year. This was done in 1990 by Lieutenant Colonel Douglas T. Peck, a lifetime ocean yachtsman who had twice and alone resailed Columbus's route from the Canaries to San Salvador in the Bahamas. He had a deep draft sailing cutter that responded to ocean currents as would the hull of a 16th century Spanish caravel. He followed exactly the northwestern course recorded in the log of Juan Ponce's pilot Anton de Alaminos, correcting for magnetic variation, which was unknown to the Spaniards, and correcting also for the 5.6 degree error in the Spanish compass. Peck's most striking discovery en route from Puerto Rico along the Lucaya or Bahama Islands was that south of Gran Bahama and the Abacos, strong currents and winds pushed his vessel west-northwest through the New Providence Channel and into the north-flowing Florida Current, which we know popularly as the Gulf Stream. Peck shouldered his way northwest across that stream until he sighted the Florida shoreline, where, like Juan Ponce, he anchored in 8 brazas, that is 44 feet of water. Where was he? Melbourne Beach. That resailing represents the latest and best evidentiary statement we have on the Juan Ponce landing. There is no guarantee, of course, that Melbourne Beach or another beach was the landing site. But it is instructive that Dr. Eugene Lyon, Florida's leading maritime historian, told me last year that he fully supports Colonel Peck's findings. All I shall conclude myself is that since Peck's research voyage of 22 years ago, we do know something about this question. Well, Juan Ponce went ashore to take possession of this island as he thought it to be, but there is no indication in the record that he encountered any people indigenous to the site. After remaining in the region for 6 days, he raised anchor on April 8th and sailed south along a featureless coastline. On the 21st of April, he made his second great discovery, though it is doubtful that he and Alaminos realized its dimensions at the time. It was the Florida Current, or Gulf Stream. That current had made itself felt when the 3 ships crossed it going west in the first days of April, but now, at a cape north of Lake Worth Inlet, which Juan Ponce named Cabo de las Corrientes, Cape of the Currents, it faced him head-on, and with such force that his ships were propelled backward, even though they had wind abaft the beam. One, the Bergantina, was swept out to deep water, later recovered. Anchoring north of the Cape, Juan Ponce and some of his men rowed ashore in a longboat to make contact with natives they sighted on shore. The encounter did not go well. The native party assaulted the Spaniards with clubs and arrows, rendering 1 seaman unconscious and wounding 2 others. The noted historian of the following century, Herrera, states that Juan Ponce had not wished to do the natives harm, but was forced to fight in order to save both his men's lives and their boat, oars, and weapons, which their assailants sought to seize. No cause for the natives' violence is given in the record, whether it was provoked by earlier visits of slaving expeditions, or by the natives' own long tradition of intertribal warfare, or by simple fear of these strange creatures with white faces and beards in this large creation of Western technology, the sailing ship, breasting the waves, cannon, whatever they were for, all along the gunwales. Continuing south, Juan Ponce put in at Jupiter Inlet to take on firewood and water, only to be attacked again by a larger party of 60 men. This time, he seized a warrior for use as a guide. He would remain anchored in the river until rejoined by the Bergantina. And somewhere along this river, which he named La Cruz, or the Cross, he planted a quarry stone cross, inscribed with what words we do not know, in the manner of other Spaniards and also Portuguese explorers of the period, who erected a stone patron, or standard, to identify their claim. That quarry stone cross has never been recovered so far as I know. Finally, navigating the Cape of the Currents by hugging the shore, Alaminos navigated to Key Biscayne, which Juan Ponce named Santa Marta, St. Martha. And on Friday, the 13th of May, he went to one of the keys, possibly Key Largo, which he named Pola, P-O-L-A. The meaning is unknown today. Rounding the keys as a body, Juan Ponce named the keys in general Los Martires, the martyrs. Quote, because viewed from afar, the rocks as they rose up seemed like men who are suffering, end quote. From Key West, he sailed west a short distance and then proceeded north to explore the reverse side of his island. Making a Gulf Coast landfall, it is thought, at San Carlos Bay off the deep mouth of the Caloosahatchee River, and anchoring near the southeast tip of what we think was Sanibel Island, he found firewood and fresh water, careened one of his ships, and had 2 belligerent encounters with the natives of the Calusa Nation, about whom you will learn a great deal shortly. That Calusa was governed by a chief named Carlos, as the Spaniards pronounced and wrote his name. He resided on Estero Island, some believe. The Calusa attacked the anchored ships in canoes. 1 Spaniard and at least 4 natives died in these actions, leading Juan Ponce to give Sanibel, if that's the correct site, its first European name, Matanzas, meaning slaughter or massacre. After 9 days in the vicinity, a decision was made to return to Puerto Rico. Accordingly, Alaminos laid a course that took the ships south-southwest, which caused them on June 21st to come upon waterless keys that Juan Ponce named Las Tortugas, or turtles, where the crews provisioned the vessels with, among other land and sea species, 160 loggerhead turtles. Following a brief reconnaissance of the Cuban coastline area west of Havana, the expedition made for Puerto Rico. 2 of the 3 ships reached it in mid-October. The 3rd ship, with Chief Pilot Alaminos aboard, Juan Ponce had dispatched into the Lucayans, or Bahamas, to search again for the elusive island Bimini. That ship would arrive in Añasco Bay 4 months later. Thus ended the first voyage of Juan Ponce de Leon. There's more to come with the 2 speakers who immediately follow me. Thank you very much.